Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to another great night here in SubhanAllah, on these great nights of Ramadan. And it's really moving, guys. There's only a little bit of time left, so I'm going to try to give you as much as I can in terms of these kinds of things, and really give you something to really take home, like a skill set. So what I'm going to try to do is do my best to kind of get you something like that. So tonight I put something together, and I think it's crucial for anyone who wants to get themselves to another level in terms of communication. So what I went ahead and did is I really put some things together where you can kind of take this stuff down, and if you apply it properly, you're going to be able to get yourself to become a much better influencer. As we're going through the end here, what I'm going to try to do is try to give you as much skills as possible in terms of these kinds of things, so you can take yourself to another level and build yourself. Guys, I've been privileged to do a lot of things with a lot of people, and it goes back to communication. So if you truly want to get yourself to another level, I'll give you some facts right off the top, and really pay attention to what I'm about to say. So excuse me. From here, guys, on average, a person will have 27 conversations per day at 10 minutes of conversation. Really think about these numbers and how they add up. So 27 conversations on average. If you multiply that by a year, you'll get 9,072 conversations per year. Now, think about that. You're going to have probably around 10,000 conversations. And within conversation, this is where you get to influence. That's how it works. So you either get what you want out of life, or you don't get what you want out of life through conversations. Now, the average person who doesn't have communication skills, who hasn't learned how to communicate effectively to get what they want out of their environments, meaning their natural place of which is the world and the outside world, and I have to be able to wheel and deal and kind of get myself what I need in terms of moving forward in my life, so I feel like a productive citizen, a productive human being overall. So the average person without the skill set of communication and negotiation will influence about 2%. 2%, really think about that. Now, if that's the case and you can influence around 2%, think about 10,000 conversations at 2%, that's about 20 conversations in terms of what you're doing. That's really crazy in terms of, I would say it's 20 or 200 conversations. I'm really just, the math is kind of losing me right now. But at the end of the day, you need to kind of get yourself to understand, out of 10,000 aspects, really think about that. Now imagine when you flip the number, and now you 98% someone can influence versus your 2%. That's gonna, you're not gonna have a chance against this person. So what I would highly advise you to do is really understand that you need to learn how to negotiate and communicate so you can get yourself to the next level. Okay, really understand that. Now, once you get yourself to these kinds of understandings and you realize that I need to push forward and I need to get myself there, how can I build myself? How can I really do this? And this is part of a series that I have, this presentation, in terms of becoming a better negotiator, becoming a better, really being able to influence. So imagine having 2% influence versus 98% influence. That's a whole nother level. So all I would tell you in the beginning is put in the time, okay, for the numbers. Put in a lot of time so you can learn. Let's say you're getting a conversation and you feel like you did pretty good in a conversation. Let's say it's 2 out of 10. But what you need to do is put in the time for the numbers, meaning the more time you put in, you will get to a point where you can influence 9 out of 10, even 10 out of 10. There are some people in sales who, once they get in, it's just over. Like the conversation, it's going to happen. But when you're like that, you have to believe in your product. You have to really know what your product is, and it has to be beneficial to a lot of people. So like Google is beneficial to a lot of people every single day. It solves a lot of their problems. every single day. So that's what you got to become overall. You got to be a problem solver, and your product, whatever it may be, you as a product, it may be something that you've created as a product, but at the end of the day, it's really about how much your product can solve people's problems. That's really it. So if it can solve everyone's problem, it's amazing in terms of that. So at the end of the day, guys, that's the way it works. So before we start today, I have a great book for you in terms of, it's called The Element. This is by Ken Robinson, and he's an excellent author, amazing in terms of this. Talks about creativity and how powerful that is. So not just having a horizontal or a vertical logical thinking, but also a horizontal aspect, so you understand how emotions really work. And guys, at the end of the day, we're made up of really two main things. Your frontal cortex, which is your frontal lobe of your brain, which is right here. Then you have your parietal lobe, your occipital lobe, and your temporal lobe. And the way these work is the frontal lobe is really your decision making, your inhibitions to kind of hold you back, problem solving. This is the front of your brain. Then that part of your brain comes around and touches the limbic system. The limbic system is there for emotions, for motivation, memory, and drives. That's what it's there for. So you're made up of two things: cognitive ability and emotional structure. That's how what you're made up of. Now, how you use those in a conversation is crucial. It's crucial how you can maneuver. So there's emotional intelligence, then there's IQ in terms of just intellect. They both are needed. They're both needed, and emotional intelligence even much more needed when you get to leadership. It's a must for leadership. So guys, you're made up of these two components, and within a system like that, that's what happens. So before we begin, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin Abil Qasim Muhammad wa ala ali baytihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Take advantage of these last nights, guys, and really keep us in your dua. We all need it. Even guys, listen, I get some calls sometimes, and we make mistakes. Like, we make mistakes in terms of what we do, but it's okay. You know, even if you make the biggest mistakes, these nights are nights of forgiveness. Learn how to forgive yourself. Learn how to take yourself to the next stage with these kinds of things. It's very important. And tomorrow, guys, we're on all the speakers again. Tomorrow, I think it's at 6:30. I'm pretty sure. 6:30. Tune into that. That's going to be a panel kind of discussion. It's going to be Q&A. So if you have any questions, have your questions ready. And a lot of us are professionals as well in terms of what we do. So when we're dealing with people, these kinds of things are very important in terms of if you want to educate yourself and take yourself to the next level. So if you have any questions, also do that. All right, guys. Tonight, what we're going to talk about is the first stage of really a conversation. And a conversation consists of three things. I'm going to take you through that. Then what should your like goal be within a conversation? Let's say you're having an argument with your wife, or you're having an argument with your husband, or your dad, your mom, your brother, your sister, your coworkers, your boss. What should your conversation be like? How should you even think about stuff like that? Now, I want to give you the first stage, and if there's requests and stuff like that, what I'll do is I'll take it to the next stage. I'll give you this segment 2, segment 3, which is then we go into different parts of the conversation. You'll see all the parts as we move forward. But if there's requests, I can actually go through them, and I can probably make it 3-4 part series for the rest of Ramadan. But having said that, I want to start you off, guys, with something really amazing in terms of studies and what's happening. And I just want you guys to realize that conversations are going to affect you a lot more than what you think. And especially if you have you're not personable with people and you can't make that connection. And what a conversation is supposed to do is do what? Connect you to another person. So what I'm going to go through today is just give you these aspects and give you this presentation so you can kind of take yourself to another level. And so overall, guys, a conversation, when you connect with another person, it almost becomes spiritual. It's a spiritual experience because that connection, which you infuse chemically and chemically, like mentally and emotionally, in terms of your hormonal streams, it's really incredible. And I'm thinking actually of tomorrow actually doing a presentation on sleep and how to really shut down and why, maybe not shut down your brain, but how important is sleep and how it affects your immune system, how it affects your, it's been linked now to cardiovascular aspects in terms of these kinds of things. So that's the way it works. All right. So I may be thinking of that. Now let's move on this in terms of pre-conversation. We're going to talk about what is the goal within a conversation, the 4 languages of communication, and trust. So let's move on that. Guys, first thing I want to talk to you about is epigenetics. Epigenetics is a new science that's coming out. And it's literally environments trigger gene activity, meaning that you're going to be changing your physiology in terms of the gene itself and what genes actually get expressed. And really pay attention to this. And the reason I'm putting it in here in terms of what's going on, I think it's so crucial in terms of what's happening. Environments affect, environmental effects turn genes on and off, meaning whenever you're, and I'm going to connect it back to a conversation, your environmental cues will actually turn on your genes inside your system. So I want to show you how this works. And this is really an amazing example of everything in the way it's structured. So ultimately, the genes and everything that's happening is connected to that. So this is the way it works. Let me show you how even depression is triggered by external cues. So a depression gene gets activated, means you're having a conversation, you're having a high stressful conversation with someone and you don't like it. You don't like the conversation, it's high stress. Maybe it's got you going for a long period of time and you're maintaining that stress. So a depression gene gets activated. Listen to this, please. Okay. By major stress events. After a stressful event, then what happens? Okay. The activation of the gene leads to what? Neurochemical changes. It actually changes the neurochemicals in your brain that lead to depression. So I want to show you how much that's set up in terms of that way. It's really incredible. So please pay attention to your conversation, guys. Pay attention to, as we talked about before, those poisonous words that you inject in someone's heart. In the Quran, it says, وَمَنْ عَمَلَ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَى وَمَنْ عَمَلَ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَى. Meaning, if you do an atom's weight of good, you're going to see it then. And if you do an atom's weight of bad, you're also going to see it. And it says in the Quran, وَحُصِّلَ مَا فِي الصُّدُورِ. Surely your intention is going to be brought out. So imagine on a day of judgment, your intention is right in your face and it's talking to you. It's literally telling you, listen, here's who I am. Here's what I've done. And you can't deny. Can you deny your own intention? And then there's another verse where it says, وَهُلِكَ عَنِّي سُلْطَانِيَ. It's my own free will has been taken away from me. So on those levels, you got to understand that when you say a word to someone and it's injected with anger, it's injected with just malice, it's injected with hatred, it's injected with just poison in terms of these kinds of things, resentment. Understand when it goes in a person's ears, prior to you saying it, that person's heart was in a different place. It was in a different place, meaning their genetic system was in a different place. And the second it comes out of your mouth and it lands in the other person's ear, that as soon as it lands in their ear, guess what's going to happen? It's going to change that. And it may activate these things in terms of their own makeup and what you've done to the other person. So you change their heart in terms of how that is. And imagine your intention is evil. Some people's intentions are evil. Or some people just want to push your buttons. Let's say you're having a conversation and you just want to push someone's button. You just want to do that because you know it, because you're being egotistical. Can you back off at that second? It's very difficult to do that. You can't in the middle of a conversation realize you're wrong. Then you tell someone, hey, I think I'm wrong. That's very difficult to do, but you'll continue with the end of the conversation. You may apologize tomorrow. That's the way it works. But on these kinds of things, before you speak, understand the weight of your tongue, that it's Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, its sin is heavy. It's light. It's a light piece of flesh, but its sin is heavy. And he says, the tongue is like a lash. When it's unleashed, it scars another person. So what you need to understand is be very careful when you open your mouth and when you allow your mouth to say certain things that you may regret later. Imam Ali also says, he says, your secrets, so that are behind your tongue, are your prisoner. Until you let them out and you speak, then you become their prisoner. Then he says, don't be mad when then people share your secrets, because you weren't strong enough to protect them in the first place. It's all about the tongue. It's so important that you understand within a conversation, this and how to use them properly. And if you want to be effective in life and get yourself ahead, learn that combination properly. It's an art form. You need to understand that. Not many people can truly communicate. To be an amazing communicator, it's a type of intelligence. So you got to get yourself to another level there. So understand, I'm giving you this weight right now, so you understand that there's a lot of weight behind words. Don't just take them like words can never hurt me. Yes, they do. They scar. And emotional wounds, when you scar someone, they bleed pain. I have a video on that. Emotional wounds actually bleed pain. When you cut someone emotionally, okay, they bleed pain. So you got to understand that. And they don't heal like physical wounds. Sometimes emotional wounds never heal because the person can never cope with the situation. And if you're the one that's created that cut inside that person, God help you, because that person is going to continue to bleed throughout their whole life. And they may never know how to deal with the situation. And they may not even know that you're the one that cut them. They may not even know that the cut is there. And it creates a behavior and they get depressed. So be very careful with this stuff, guys. I'm saying this and I'm putting this on the table for a reason. So you guys understand that before you say your words, weigh them. Weigh them. Be an intellect that doesn't put weight on people's hearts. It actually relieves it. It relieves it. And when you know the truth, follow it. Follow it. Even if your heart can't follow it, it's okay. Just at least know it in the beginning. Then train yourself to follow the truth. Train yourself on that road to get there, where you earn the emotion. Then the mind is telling you don't, and the heart is also telling you now don't. The mind was telling you go, it's salah, okay? And the heart tells you yes, go, it's salah. So you want to get that in line. Now, let's move forward, guys, in terms of what's going on. I'm going to give you the 3 levels of a conversation and how it works, okay? So the conversation is split up into 3 segments. So 3 segments. Pre-conversation, this is prior. So what happens here, guys, is a person comes in and they may have an antecedent condition. Let's say I got in a fight with my boss and I come home. Then my wife says something to me really like small and I blow up on her. So I displace my anger and I put it out on my wife. That's called displacement in psychology. It's not what you want to do. It's not what it's really, you're actually the source of your anger. You can't take it on. Maybe it's your boss, so you have to like kind of give up and not give your perspective because you're scared you may get fired. Then you go and what do? You displace your negative energy onto someone else that you can control or you can hurt, or somebody is going to be in your life and they can't leave. Okay, so be careful in terms of antecedent conditions. That's what they're called also in psychology. Okay, antecedent conditions are what you come into a conversation with. I'm not going to go into that too much. I'm just giving you in terms of be careful with what emotional state you come in. I'm going to talk about that a little bit here, but I'm not going to, I have a slide that's on in the conversation, and then I'll take it further. All right, so number 2, pre-conversation. So this is before you enter a conversation. Conversation is when you actually enter the conversation. You're now in the middle of the conversation, and you're now interacting with the other person. So even think about if you come into a conversation and you're really mad. Think about you come into a conversation and you're really happy. Something is great has happened to you. Think about all the antecedent conditions that you can come into a conversation with. That will affect the conversation. It will affect it. So Imam Ali alayhi salam gives us one thing here, and I'll move forward. He says, have the pain in your heart and a smile on your face. So sometimes these emotions that you need to also cover them in terms of the well-being of the other person, where you can still display positive energy coming into a conversation, and let's say you're hurt on the inside. So just because you care about what the conversation and you don't want to hurt the other person. Number 3 is post-conversation. Can you say, I'm sorry? Can you say, listen, I made a mistake. I went back and I looked into my intention, and wow, I was wrong, okay? Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, the first to apologize is the bravest. He talks about bravery. So apologizing takes courage. It takes courage to do that, to actually apologize. So, and these kinds of things, it's very important that, and you do accounting, like at the end of the night, you go back into your day and you account for other things in terms of what's happening. And maybe you said something wrong to someone. And a post conversation would also be that, dua for Monday, like the Monday dua. So if you put dua for Monday on YouTube, in that particular dua, and it talks about how you should actually be with another person. And if you've done someone wrong, you're asking Allah, and let's say you haven't seen this person for 5-6 years, let's say you owe money and you can't get to them, okay? You ask Allah to forgive the other person's sins. So you're actually being forgiven by Allah by these kinds of things, that for the people you can't even reach now to apologize. So post-conversation is very important as well. I'm not going to get into that. And there's something in psychology that's called post-decision regret. And these are just, there's a lot of things in the back end after a conversation. So before you enter, a final thing I want to say about this, before you enter a conversation, take a snapshot, meaning take a snapshot of the other person's emotional state and their mental state. And before you leave a conversation, you should also take a snapshot and see how that has affected, your presence has affected the other person. Now, I'm going to jump into the next thing, and this will lead into that. So conversation definition, okay. Informational exchange of ideas by spoken words, okay. This is the common definition. Now, it's part of it, but it's actually not all of it, because we have multiple ways of communicating, not just spoken words. You're going to see there's 4 different levels of communication. And guys, I cannot stress this enough in terms of understanding how this works, okay? Nope. Okay, we converse simultaneously on 4 different languages. There's a typo there. In 4 different languages, meaning 4 different channels. So on this level, it's so important that you guys understand that, all right? So what should our goal be when we take that snapshot? We're coming into a conversation. We take that snapshot, and then we end the conversation, and we take another snapshot before we end, and we leave that person's presence. What should our goal be within that time period? Some conversations are small. The average conversation per day is about 10 minutes. Some conversations are much longer, like 6 hours, let's say, okay? But then from there, you take yourself to another level. So what is our goal? It's this. You got to understand, your ultimate goal in any conversation is to leave the other person in a better state than what you have entered, than when they entered your presence. So when they came into your presence and when you came into their presence, you leave them in a better state than when you entered their presence. That should be your goal. Now, let's say you come into a conversation and the person's down and you make them feel great by the end of the conversation. let's say you relieve their stress. But let's say on the opposite end, you add stress and you just like screw them up mentally. You throw off their day. You really get under their skin. And by saying words that may be coming from your ego, because you're egotistical, you got really hurt within the conversation. And now I want to burn you right back, and I want to reject you. And I just want to make you feel horrible on purpose. Okay. We all have gone through this, guys. Okay. We all have our triggers, and remember epigenetics and how we can hurt the other person. So it's very important how that happens. Your ultimate goal is to leave the person in a better state than when they have entered your presence. That's your goal. All right. The four languages of a conversation. Please pay attention to this. This is crucial in terms of advancing yourself. And guys, I can sit in within meetings now, because I've trained myself so well on these things. I can literally time people's different languages. So if somebody says a word, and as they're saying something, they do a certain behavior where they put their hand in their pocket, you can actually track that now and just see when they said that. And is it an informational piece, meaning that it can be truth or a lie? And if it is, you know what I mean? What happens that if you do that again and again and again, guys, this is what happens. If you do this again and again, you can track the behavior now. It becomes the sign of they're lying, let's say, or they're telling the truth. You can start tracking behavior when you connect it to the verbal language. You're tracking the behavioral language and you're connecting it to the verbal language. And that's amazing. That's a whole nother level, guys. I'm not going to tell you that just people can do that automatically. You have to be at a whole nother level in terms of communication to be able to do these things. But you can track people's behavior and their signatures of lying or telling the truth just by their behavior. And I'm going to give you now a hadith also, and even the Quran, and how it talks about these four languages and why it's so important that you understand these things. All right. Pre-conversation, the four languages are, okay, the total impact of a message is about what? Really pay attention. So the four languages: verbal, behavioral, emotional, and dress. Okay, so your dress can talk about you. Imagine you go to a wedding in pajamas, okay, or imagine you go to a presentation or an interview in your pajamas. Okay, that's going to talk about you. When you say the words you use, let's say you swear. And by the way, you get yourself to swear, it will come out in the wrong places, guaranteed. And it's the way you train yourself. So be careful with using those foul words. It's haram anyway. So just al-fahsha'i wal-munkar, meaning indecency. So be decent. Don't swear. Don't use the words because you want to emphasize certain things because you can't do it without these negative words. That just tells me that your communication skills is not there. And people use it for different things. It's up to you. You want to use it. At the end of the day, it's your prerogative. But I'm just telling you, you don't need it. To be an effective communicator, you don't need it. Behavior is all about your body and your language in terms of how you display yourself. And by the way, that's the biggest one right there. All right. People leak out. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, when someone tries to hide something, it will leak out on their facial expressions, meaning behavioral, and the limbs that they have, meaning your body language. It will leak out. And if someone knows how to read it, they'll read you like a book. Don't think you're hiding anything. They'll read you like a book, guaranteed. Okay. They're experts. There are people who are experts and stuff like this. All right. Emotional is just literally your emotional state. This is where you need emotional intelligence, where you have to pick up on people's emotions. They're hurt, they're not hurt. You have to be an empath here. Dress, I already explained it to you. Those are the four languages. Here's what happens when you ask someone, like I'll give you an example. Guys, before I go into the example, you can send mixed messages to what? Another person within one statement. This is how it works. So watch this. You walk up to your wife and you're like, you look at her and you check out her facial expressions, and she's like, hey, you know what? Let me flip that. The wife walks up to the husband and he's all really mad, and I don't want my sister to get mad at me. All right. So he gets mad and he's like, and she looks at him, she's like, because women are much stronger usually on emotional intelligence. She picks up his emotional language And she's like, what's wrong? He's like, and he's probably mad at her, let's say, nothing. And he walks away. So check this out. The first language, it's saying there's nothing wrong because it's verbal. He's saying nothing, okay? The second language, which is behavioral, the swinging of the hands, there's something wrong, guaranteed. So right away, you got contradicting messages within saying one word and one behavior. But this is different than this. The behavior is different than what? Your verbal language. Now, the emotional language is also saying there's something wrong. By the way, the person emphasized the words. So the husband's like, nothing. He put a lot of stress and he hired his voice. So there is something. So the emotion behind that, which is the third language, is what? There's also saying something wrong. So two languages are saying there's something wrong. And one language is saying, no, there's nothing wrong. You have mixed messages being thrown at you. So the wife is like, what? And most of us, we will not believe this language. We will go with this and we'll say, no, what's wrong? Really, what's wrong? Tell me what's wrong. We won't believe what's going on. So I'm giving you a simple example, but it can get a lot more complex than this, guys. I'm giving you a very simple, so you understand the concept. But at the end of the day, I want to tell you something really quickly about these four languages, okay? In the Quran, it says, Allamahul bayan, so verbal. He can speak. He's given him utterance so we can have that. That's our conversation. That's part of being a human being. When you study mantiq, it says, Al-insan hayawanun natiq. Hayawanun natiq. So he can speak. He speaks. He has the ability to speak. So that's the verbal. Second, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, Kunu du'atan lana bighayri alsinatakum. Be a caller unto our path without your tongue, meaning through your behavior. It's incredible. Okay. Third, in terms of Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says he was looking at a man and he was praying. And look how Imam Ali picks up the emotional language through this language, the second one, the behavioral language. He picks up one language through another. And the man was praying and he was stroking his beard. So Imam Ali alayhi salam says, if his heart was tranquil, meaning he had khushu' in his heart, so he's speaking it, that's the emotional language. He knows his heart is not there and he doesn't have khushu', says his limbs and his extremities he would not be stroking his beard. So through the behavior, he's getting the emotion. So that's the emotional language. Okay. Imam Sadiq was also, I think you should go back and read this in history, but Imam Sadiq, I'm not going to go into it too much, was highly dressed in terms of just, not highly dressed, but he was dressed very casually like the people would dress. And a person comes up to him and he says, Yabna Rasulullah, I've never seen your forefathers wear this. Why are you wearing such haughty clothes, in terms of his opinion? And the other person was wearing raggedy clothes, trying to look humble to the people. So the exterior of Imam Sadiq was presented very well. And the other person's exterior was presented very wrong. And it wasn't not wrong, but he was trying to be humble. He was trying to show that he's humble. But on the inside, he wasn't humble. Imam Sadiq on the inside was humble in terms of his expression. He says this, he makes a distinction right away. And he says, in the time of the Prophet, people were not well off. So we couldn't dress this way. But now people are very well off. And this is just a respect for my dignity and my honor amongst the people. So look at the way the Imam, he distinguishes right away. But look at the dress language. It's so important in terms of how we dress, how we talk, how we walk, how we do everything about you. You're a talking, walking billboard at the end of the day. And if you say you represent the religion, then people are going to have flags all over you because your dress talks, your body talks, your mouth, your behavior, everything talks. Okay. And if you commit, and I'm not going to go there in terms of that, but at the end of the day, here's what happens, guys. So the Imam alayhi salam, he reaches into he puts his hand inside the person's, underneath his undergarments, his clothes. and he had very raggedy and rough clothes on the outside, but on the inside, he had very silky, his undergarments were very silky and soft. He grabs the man's hand then, and he puts it inside his robe, and the man feels a very rough and rugged texture to the clothes on the inside. He's like, this is the true intention for Allah Azza wa Jal. So on that level, he tells him, don't show off to people. Have your true intention to Allah Azza wa Jal. Don't show off to the people that you are humble. When you're on the inside, you're a munafiq. He says, this is what tells the difference. And it's the inside. It's not the outside. So subhanAllah, the dress language is so important when trying to convey messages. So as a guy, if you dress in tight clothes and or you are there taking pictures without any shirt, guess what? You're communicating. Okay. If you're a sister that may have taken off her hijab or take some indecent, things in terms of sometimes on Facebook or Instagram, stuff like that. Be careful. That's all I'm saying to you. Just be careful in terms of these kinds of things. Be careful of your dignity and your own self-respect. And I'm not here, nobody's here is judging anyone. Just be careful. It's your reputation. That's all it is. And if you care about that, good for you. And if you don't, just throw these words across the table and don't even worry about it. But at the end of the day, it's up to you. When you are asked by someone, we went through the example. Okay, so what happens here? We understand now that the trust language and these kinds of things, all four languages will communicate trust, bottom line, okay? These four languages are used to establish and maintain trust. So when someone is talking a certain way, but their behavior is contradicting them, you will not trust them. And let me show you how do I build trust? Look at this. 93% of trust can be lost before what? You open your mouth, because of the other what? The other languages, and you never know it. So let me tell you how important this is in terms of establishing trust with other people. Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, he says, true generosity, look at the three languages and how they're used, is giving someone before they ask. Otherwise, you feel rebuke and saving face. Otherwise, that's all you're doing it for. So your intention is there. So true generosity is giving someone before they what? Ask. So if they use their mouth and they ask you, you're no longer being generous. Now you just want to save face, or somebody look at you, look what happens. Or rebuke. You don't want to be rebuked by someone. Okay? So if he's telling you, pick up on signs from people. Pick up on the other languages of people, their emotional state. They're hurt, they're not hurt. They're going through a tough time, they're not going through a tough time. Pick up on their emotional state and their behavior before they have to ask you, because that person has dignity as well. And if you can pick up on the other two languages and you do something, let's say the person's really in need and you go out there in the middle of the night and you slip something underneath their door in terms of money or whatever, and they never know it. They never know it's you. You just saved that person's dignity. So Imam Ali alayhi salam, when somebody would come to the door and they would knock on the door, he would open the door just a little bit and he would give them from behind the door, because he didn't want to look at their face. He says, because a Muslim's face has dignity. He wouldn't look at your face because he didn't want to make you look less. Communication. Look at the behavioral communication of Imam Ali alayhi salam. How beautiful is that? That's a heart that cannot be touched. It's incredible. Now, all right, pre-conversation, the four languages. I'm going to give you the percentages here in terms of how this works so you understand the weight of each language. Verbal, like a lot of us, we think that the verbal communication is everything. I got a really fast tongue, but you don't realize that that's nothing. It's literally nothing. And that's the 93% is here now, guys. Okay. After this is the 7%, before you speak, 93% of trust can be lost here. Why? Because of this. So this is words only. Watch this. Behavioral language is 55% of communication. 55%. Okay? Dress and emotion are what? 38%. All right? But I'm including these two kind of together because they're almost like together. It's a behavior. So the way you dress is a behavior. So, but the emotion is about 38%. So that's the way it works. You combine these two, you're going to get 93% versus the what? The 7%. That's how it works. So you can lose trust by these two languages and they're not even spoken. So before you even open your mouth and have a conversation, you can lose that trust. Let's say somebody's really arrogant. They're very pompous and they turn their shoulder once they're talking to you. Guess what? You're already losing that trust with that person. And everybody picks up the vanity of a person. They pick it up. All right. So let me move forward here. The foreign languages are used to establish and maintain trust. Trust. What is trust, guys? Guys, this is the last part really in terms of everything and this whole thing in terms of a pre-conversation. So whenever you're about to enter a conversation, your trustworthiness is on the line. And if you use those languages during a conversation, and you use all four, and all four now, you don't have mixed messages, all four are saying the same thing. All four. You know what you gain here? Sincerity in the heart. And we talked about sincerity in the heart, the truth on your tongue, and presenting the truth through wisdom. So the second you do that, and you establish these four, and you're literally, all four languages are saying the same. Your mouth, your actions, and your emotions are saying what? And your dress, they're all saying the same thing. You're now consistent with your languages. So I want to give you a final example, and I'll give you two examples about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And honesty is the bridge that between two intentions. What that means is to build trust, you must be honest. Okay. Al-haqqu ma'ali wa aliyu ma'al-haqq. Okay. That is incredible. Truth is with Ali and Ali is with the truth. When you can get yourself to say the truth and you have sincerity in the heart, it's incredible. It's incredible. So now, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was known with two things, two names. As-Sadiq al-Amin. Those were his nicknames. As-Sadiq, he was the truthful one, the trustworthy one. So whenever you can do that and you can gain those weapons, if you want to become a dominant communicator, dominant, all right, have your knowledge and have your wisdom. No problem. You need those two. But this is what you need ultimately. You need sincerity in your heart. So all four languages need to come from here. Okay? The truth on your tongue, and present the truth through wisdom. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, wisdom is a tree that sprouts in the heart and its fruits manifest on your tongue. And he also says, whatever man intalaqa min al-qalb, waqa'a fil qalb, wa man intalaqa min al-lisan, waqafa 'inda al-udhunan. So whatever comes out of the heart will enter the heart. Sincerity. Four languages saying the same thing. Sincerity in the heart. Okay? Whatever comes out of the heart will enter the heart. And whatever comes out of your tongue will stop at the other person's ears. It will not enter. That's incredible in terms of understanding that. Incredible. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all four languages must say the same thing to create trust, to connect emotionally to another person. Honesty is the key. It's the key. That's where you start with. So if you truly want to become a very powerful communicator, you have to get that down first. Otherwise, you're just a manipulator. That's the way it works. So the truth needs courage. You need to have courage to say the truth. And courage is very difficult when it's standing in front of fear sometimes. So courage is not that there isn't any fear. Courage is moving forward despite the fear. That the fear is there, but I still move forward. And I'm not afraid to take this on. That's the way it works. So I'll leave you with this in terms of a story about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And before we say that, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So I'm going to show you the 4 languages and how they work. And when you apply the 4 languages properly through wisdom, it's incredible how you can shift someone's heart. So we're talking about communication at the highest level. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Imams, they were experts at what I'm saying right now in terms of the languages and knowing how people work. They can flip a person in seconds. Now, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was walking and he sees an older woman and she's carrying some groceries. There are different versions of the story, but I'm going to tell you this one. And she's walking, and as she's walking, he sees her, and he goes and walks up to her, and he just grabs her groceries, and she thanks him right away. And as he's walking, she starts to tell him, "Oh, young man, I want to tell you about a sorcerer, a person who's a liar, who's tricking people. Okay, he's this, that, and his name is what? Muhammad. He's come and he's tricking people. He's making all these lies, and he's a hypocrite. He's false. Okay, don't trust him." She's advising him, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what does he do? Does he verbalize? Does he use the first languages, does he use the first language in terms of the verbal language? Does he do that? No, he stays silent. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, "Kam min kalamin jawabahu as-samt." There is so much of speech that the appropriate response is what? Silence. Imam Ali, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as he's walking, he stays silent. He stays silent. How many of us, when we hear something about ourselves, can we do that? Where Imam Ali alayhi salam says, "Al-ihtimal qabrul uyub," meaning to hold back and to be forbearing and allow the person to make a mistake. He says there's a grave for that person's mistake that you can actually put it in. He says, be forbearing, hold back. So you allow the person to make their mistake and you can forgive. Al-ihtimal tastahmil qabrul uyub. Okay? It's like the grave of sins for others. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is exercising this. He holds back. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't say one word. He continues. Now, think about Rasulullah's behavior. He's got her groceries. Wow, he's already communicating. So his verbal language is silent. His behavior language is on top. He's communicating with what? His behavior. I'm helping you. And now her language is verbal first. This hierarchy here, Rasulullah's hierarchy is what? Behavior first, then everything else. Her language, in terms of the older lady, it's her verbal language that's first and everything else. So now, how many of us, if we hear something so bad about ourselves, we would grab the groceries and hit the old lady with them? Some of us would do that. Okay? Our ego takes over. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also knows that her emotional code and what she's got in her head and her emotion is wrong. So Rasulullah is in a state of what? Helping her. She's not victimizing me by what she's saying. She's been victimized. Something has said something or someone has said something to her, okay, that put her in this stage. And he's fighting that person that's not even existing, or even the shaitan. So Rasulullah doesn't react against the lady with an angered heart. He reacts with a merciful heart, meaning that his mind is too strong. This filtration, you cannot hit his heart and turn mercy into anger. She couldn't do that. No matter what she said, he knows how to filter up here. So now he knows she's the one that needs the help. And he filters and he stays merciful in the heart. وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. If you were hard-hearted, it's talking about the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, surely they would have fled from you. The Prophet had the softest of hearts. He was incredible in terms of these kinds of things. So now, Rasulullah, he takes in the message, filters it. It doesn't hit his heart. It stops here. He filters the information. He's very aware of her state. He's very aware of her emotional state, mental state, what she needs in terms of the message now. He's decoded the information. And now he's going to give the medicine through his words. Your words are medicine. Now he injects his word with mercy, but through his behavior first. He's already done it. Watch this. And when the behavior takes second place in Rasulullah's sallallahu alaihi wasallam in terms of his hierarchy, and now the verbal language takes over, and the behavioral language is now second. So now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gets her to her destination. She stops and she goes, "Thank you, young man. You've been so kind. I really want to thank you." But then she looks at him and she says, "But I never got your name." I just want you to think of this moment now. Rasulullah, his name is a medicine. Rasulullah's name is injected with mercy. His name, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ. If you were hard-hearted, he's not. His words now, he injects them with what? Mercy. So he can soften the other person's heart. And he says to her, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Wow. One word. One word. It was all behavior. كونوا دعاة لنا بغير ألسنتكم. His behavior was leading. And when he got her to her, now what are you going to say to someone like that? You were talking about me negatively and I was helping you positively. Wow. And now she's stung. She's shocked. And she says to him, now the heart flips. Why? Because he injected the words with mercy. His words, his own name is mercy. Stamp that in your heart. Stamp it. Stamp his name in your heart. And watch what happens. Watch when you speak in your words and you can circumlate your tongue. Watch what happens to your words. Watch. And when they enter someone's heart, how soft they make the other heart feel. Now, she says, my son, I want to follow you. He flipped the heart. That is incredible communication. Learn these skills, brothers and sisters. Learn them. They're your aid in this world. You will be asked about every single word and every emotion injected into that word, be it good or bad. مَنْ عَمَلَ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَى. If you say an atom's weight of good, small word, you're going to see it. وَمَنْ عَمَلَ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَى. And if you inject your words with the positive things, you will see it. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين